That's good. Okay. Welcome. Hello. We are live. Welcome, welcome, ladies. How is everyone? Please let us know you're here. My name is Taylor Thompson, and we're live here in the She Network, where we are sharing her excellence. And I cannot wait to introduce you to my beautiful guest today. So I'm going to give you all time to hop on and hop in. We are talking about Monday. I like to call it Monday Mom's Mindset. And certainly, I think this is a great day for moms to dive in and have some good mindset going on. And if you're not chiming in, if you catch this on a replay, let us know this is on a replay. Some of you, this may be lunchtime. You may be feeding the kiddos lunchtime, which you normally may be able to tune in and may have to tune in later today. But let me know you're here. And also let StreamYard know there's a link right above inside that you can see that allows you to let me know your name, because otherwise all we see is Facebook users. So somebody just chimed in. Hello, hello. We want to welcome. There's Alice. Good morning, Alice. How are you? Great to see you here. Anyway, give Facebook permission to allow us to see your name. But let's go ahead and dive right in, because I have my beautiful, beautiful friend, Miss Angela Brooks, here today, and I have to tell you a little bit about her. So before we get started, and we actually met, which is so it's almost very almost the same story, but I actually met you at Ray Higdon, through Ray Higdon. And through his mastermind. So Larry and I, we got started with his mastermind several years ago because he was helping us get into the online space, right? Taking our message online. Praise the Lord that we made that decision, right?
Good timing.
Today, good timing. So, and I met Angela there, and so. Very, very fascinating story, because we connected on so many levels, not just from a friendship level, but our backgrounds ran very, very parallel. And what happened for us is whenever we started talking about stories, because as you ladies know how passionate I am about stories. And I started challenging Angela to tell me your story, because we were working on how to craft your story and how to make it.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever we really connected on a really, really, really deep level. And it was something that it's been kind of on her heart, but a little bit, this is, I'm just going to tell you, ladies, first of all, good morning, Angela. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Nervous. I'm sweating.
You are. Well, I have to tell you, ladies, because she's one of the first ones that I asked to come in here to share for interview and to share with you ladies. And it's taking, 6-7 months now, because
Every bit of it.
She's one of our founding members here at the She Network. And I was so excited that she accepted, to be here and to contribute. And because I just love her energy, because she was one of the ones whenever I first had this vision that she was like, you go girl, we need this. And everybody, no matter who you are, needs somebody in their life to say, you got this, to be the encourager. And you were that for me, first and foremost. Good. Even though no matter how we made the connection, we connected and you were an encourager. And I just have to publicly thank you for that. And thank you for, it's always great to have people coming alongside you. Wouldn't you ladies agree? Coming along beside you and locking arms with you and say, you got this. Yeah. Especially if it's new and if it's, you haven't never experienced this before. So I just wanted to thank you. So this is a big, big day. Big day for her. Big day for us. She just had her birthday. We just celebrated her. Boop, boop. So woo woo. Birthday. In the quarantine, we still made it work. I loved all the beautiful food that you shared, the deliveries and the cake. It was beautiful. So anyway, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, quarantine has not been bad, but we're hanging in there. I'm very grateful for our 17 acres to get outside.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about, because where you tell us about your life. Tell us about how you got to this journey. We're going to dive right in, ladies.
How did I get to this place? was a long journey. It was not smooth. It was not pretty. Actually, it took me, when you first asked me to speak on this, I was like, oh, I don't need to tell that story. That's really gross. And I felt the shame of where I had been. And I kept thinking about that word shame. Brene, what's her name? Yes, she wrote the book about shame, and I resonated with that so deeply. Actually, I've been kind of reading through that a little bit this week, just because that word came up so strongly for me. And I was a 16-year-old, and of course, when you're 16, you know absolutely everything. And married an 18-year-old soldier who was just got orders to go to Vicenza, Italy. And so I dropped out of school because I wanted to go with my soldier to Italy. What I didn't know, and the things that were coming up for me, were a lot of challenges. Do you know how hard it is for a 16-year-old to get a job? You can't. So I had to go back to high school when I got over to Italy. I got, first of all, March 20th, I turned 16. April 2nd, we got married. April the 20th, we got on the airplane and flew to Italy. And that's where I stayed for 2.5 years. Never been without my parents, you know, family, no family whatsoever.
I mean, first of all, that's mind-boggling in and of itself. I can't even imagine letting my 16-year-old daughter go on a plane with get married first. That's first. Go leave the country.
Two.
I mean, and as a 16-year-old, not having any life experience and be thrown right into the of a new country, new language, new culture, and not having any life experience, that had to have been, I mean, you were fast.
Yeah. And clearly I have a survivor personality because I just functioned. I didn't know that your refrigerator shouldn't have food in it all the time. There was literally no food. First of all, for the first 90 days to 6 months that I was there, we didn't have a refrigerator. I'm not joking. We had a bed and a dresser, which was in the apartment that we finally got. And my landlord came over to collect money, and she walked in, and she, did a walkthrough because we were young. She wanted to make sure we weren't tearing the place up. And she worked on post, and she said, I can get you some furniture, some lended furniture from the military. So she got us a kitchen table, a refrigerator, a little stove. And it was like, oh, this is cool, but there's nothing in it. And so he was eating on post, and he didn't bring anything home. He's 18 years old. He thought about himself. So I went a lot without food. And so I probably lost 15, 20 pounds when I got there, and I was already a very small person. So I rode my bike, and he drove an Alfa Romeo car.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So my mom came to visit about the 1.5 year mark. And that's when I discovered we had money in a checking account that I didn't have access to. So I was like, where did that come from? So my mom acted like a mom, and we all of a sudden had furniture and we had food. And I was like, awesome.
Wow.
So we were married for 6.5 years, came back to Vicenza, Alabama, and that's where I went to nursing school. Never wanted to be a nurse. That was not my life gift. I just happened to be very good at it. I had good people skills. I enjoyed talking to the different patients. I liked learning. And back in, what was that, 86, 87, nurses didn't get paid a lot of money. However, it was more than I already had. So I got my first check, and the first thing he wanted was my check. And I'm like, I've done wiped other people's hind ends. I'm not handing you my whole check. I'll help pay the bills, but I'm not giving you my money. So that's where that problem began, is because I felt a little bit of freedom. I had something to actually use and to cling on to.
Before you got there, have you sensed any control? I mean, was that, or did you know it? Did you know?
I didn't. I didn't know that.
You didn't know. So he had you in such under his thumb, but because you didn't know any better, you just thought that was normal.
Yeah, that was normal for me. I didn't know any different. And so while we were in Italy, he had I did not write a physical check until I was 23 years old.
Wow. Okay. Did you have children at the time?
No,
No.
didn't
Okay.
have children because he told me I wasn't smart enough to be a mother.
So he was verbally abusing you,
Yes,
but you
and
didn't. But that wasn't. But you didn't know.
didn't
That,
have a clue.
okay. Okay. So you've gone through 6 years of this and not realizing that this guy is mentally and emotionally abusing you and
Yeah,
not realizing it. So was it his idea for you to get a nurse or to get a job or
he he wanted me to get a job. He didn't care what I did, just get a job. He wanted more money coming in, and I agreed. I thought everybody needed to work. So my mom paid for my college. She put me through nursing school, and that's when I learned that other people live differently. I had 3, maybe 4 outfits that I could wear to nursing school. Like you couldn't wear jeans, you couldn't wear sweatpants. And so I had like 4 outfits that I wore the entire time in nursing school. And he wouldn't give me money to go buy things. So when I got my nursing, I was like, oh, I don't have to ask permission to go buy something. I have money, which always caused a fight. So, yeah, when I learned about my own independence, when I learned that I'm working a job, um, that's when I started thinking. I started doing things differently, and that was going against the grid.
Well, I find this interesting. And for those of you who are just kind of joining in, we're here with Angela Brooks, and she's one of our founding members here at the She Network. And she's just diving into her story, and we're having a lot of wow, what this is crazy, like that. So that piece right there, what you just shared, I resonate with this. I resonate with this because
Yeah.
whenever men like that control you, and you don't really realize you're being controlled until you push back,
Yes.
until you say something contrary to what they're saying or what you want them to do. And that's whenever the challenges really begin.
That's when the fights begin. Absolutely.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that piece.
The arguments was loud. Like my little neighbor who lived next to our house in Alabama, he could hear us screaming through the door, and he would come out on the porch with his coffee in the morning. He'd ask, "How are you today? Are you?" He always talked to me. I just loved him. Him and his wife would invite us up to eat all the time, and they would pray over us, and they were just good mentors for a young couple. And he would take him aside and he would tell him, you don't need to talk to your wife that way. I can hear what you're saying to her. And he was like, "Oh, she's dumb. She doesn't get it. We don't have that kind of money, blah, blah, blah." And it was like, oh, and again, that's that young. And so when I see a young girl now that says she's going to get married early, my mentor just goes into overdrive. It's like, let me have a conversation with you before you make that decision. But you just don't know. You just don't know at that age.
You just don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my normal.
So did you love him, or did you think that was love, or at that point, where was your mind? Like, where are you right now, or whenever you started seeing people live differently, and you're seeing, okay, this is not normal. How did it affect your emotional relationship and the emotional connection that you had, or was there any at that point?
I don't know that I loved him, and I didn't know how to get out. Because I was living in Alabama, and of course, you had the phone that hung on the wall that you could only make calls so many times a month because it cost money. My mom would call often, but anytime I was talking to her, he was always sitting right there.
Sure.
So there was no conversation that I could ask. She came down and stayed a couple of weeks with me, and I think she saw at that point what was going on.
So did she? So you think without actually her saying it, you think that your mom knew that you were in a bad situation? Just
Yeah.
Mama.
Yeah. But again, we're 4.5 hours away from home. So it's kind of not like she could back a U-Haul up and say, "Let's go." But yeah, she knew. And we didn't go home very often because I don't know why we didn't go home, honestly. We just didn't go home. It wasn't very far to drive. But yeah, he had me away from family, away from friends, because I had no girlfriends. I had nobody to sit and chit chat with. It was just me and him, period. I
And
was
that,
very isolated.
and that's what typical men in these situations,
Yes.
they pull you away, they isolate you. It's like the sheep, you know what I mean? It's like the you know, whenever the sheep get alone,
Yep.
you know, outside of the
Yep.
pack, you know,
Yep.
that's what they do. And and it's so subtle, and you don't
Yes.
realize what's happening. So what was the so whenever so what was the turning point? So what did, I mean, with kiddos, like what I mean, like
We had no children together, thank goodness. We had no real estate. I had my name on nothing. Everything was in his name that we owned. He had a motorcycle, he had boats, he had all this, and we finally moved back to our hometown. We moved back in September. I got a new job over 45 minutes away from the house, and I was collecting checks and I was putting money aside. I would not give him all my money. And so the fights continued over money, and he slammed me against the wall. And I don't even remember what the argument was about. And I looked at him and I said, I'm out of here. I didn't even plan for that to come out of my mouth. It's like, I'm out. I got in my car. I left everything. I didn't pack clothes, nothing. It
yeah.
was just, I'm done. So that's when your older generation of family are going, oh, you can't leave. You have to stay. You've got to make it work. And I was like, my grandmother didn't. She lived with my granddad for, however many, 50 something years. And it's like, I'm not going back. He's free. You can go live with him if you want to. I'm not going back in the house. So,
But you know, I think that's I mean, you know, whenever your family members, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know
exactly.
what you've experienced behind closed doors. I mean,
Yep.
I'm talking from even my own, I mean, like
Yeah.
it was, I mean, my family was all with their chins on the floor whenever I walked out, with the
Oh,
kids, like
sure.
everything. And they're like, what happened? Like, because we don't say anything that nobody knows.
Yeah.
And so whenever you were brave enough to leave and say, I'm done, then somehow or another, we start getting the guilt and the shame or placed on us because is that what your family did to you? Started shaming you for
They
leaving?
stopped talking to me. They stopped talking to me. Like my stepdad stopped talking to me for probably 6 months. Like if I was in the same room with him, he would act like I wasn't there. And I was like, Mom, how long is this going to last? And she's going, I don't know. And I was like, okay. So naturally you become bitter. You just everything, you just shove everything down and you become very resilient. You just keep moving.
Yeah.
So I was working at the hospital. I had a phone call and he wanted to talk to me. And when they called and said, hey, you've got somebody that wants to talk to you, I'm like, I don't need to talk to him. We were, going through court. That was over. They had to put me into the ICU unit, ICU PCU unit to work because it was a locked unit. And then that way they didn't have to worry about him coming in and finding me on the floor. And I had to work in that area. And then I had to be escorted to my car every evening when I got off work. I was so embarrassed at my job.
So you had to tell your job like you're afraid
Yeah.
of him. You're
Oh,
afraid.
yeah. Well, the things that he was saying to the person at the desk, they knew he didn't need to come in because
Like,
he got ugly with them. And so they just moved me into the units, which I did not enjoy, but I worked. But that was to protect the hospital, to protect me. And then they escorted me to my car for probably about a month.
so do you mind sharing some of the things so they obviously knew you were in danger by the verbiage that he
Yeah.
was using.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he was threatening them. That's my wife and I'm coming in. And I don't think he threatened like to shoot anybody or nothing crazy like that. But he was angry because he couldn't get to me. And then when I got home, Mom wouldn't receive any calls. We didn't have cell phones and stuff then. So, it was just, he didn't have control. And then finally the court pushed everything through and we didn't have anything. There was a non-contested, just get it done divorce thing.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make it as painful as possible, and he did a good job.
Wow. So, okay. So now, so now we've got that piece behind us. And so now there's like this, I mean, there's got to have been this learning curve of this thing you had to go through.
Yeah.
Take us, like, were you living with your?
I moved in with mom probably for 3 months, 6 months, I don't know. And with my stepdad not speaking to me, it was a very uncomfortable environment. And so you just froze, but I'm going to continue. Then I started seeing this other guy who had money. And so that was something that was never in my life. I never had a lot of money. He was taking me out to nice places to eat. We had a lot of fun. It was a lot of laughter. And I don't remember how long, probably a little over a year, we got married, which the moment that I said that I do, I was like, I've made another mistake. And this one was ugly, but he was the financial security that I'd never had before. So that was easy to fall into for me. And when we pulled back into the driveway from getting married, we went off to the Smoky Mountains and got married. And we pulled in the driveway and he said, that's the last vacation we'll take because I don't like to travel. And I just remember sitting in the car for probably 30 minutes going, oh my God, what did I just do? And so that situation, we were nothing alike. We absolutely had nothing in common. I started working out at a gym. I started running. I started, building another community of friends and connections. And that's where I started competing for the Gladiators. And that's where I started running in 5Ks, 10Ks. And I used to do lots of exercise. That was my getaway kind of thing. So that was something that made him uncomfortable. And I was probably I know I was in the best shape I've ever been in. And I was ready to compete with Gladiators. And it was coming up that weekend. And he told me that I looked like a man. And I'm like, what exactly does that mean, that I look like a man? Because I was hourglass. I was solid muscle. And I worked out all the time. But he didn't like that. That's not something we did together. So he didn't understand the workout thing. I don't know if Taylor is going to make it back in. I don't know what this says. There's a Facebook user. It says, wow, incredible. Thank you. It was an embarrassing story. And I know Taylor's trying to come back in. I'm going to wait for a minute because I know she don't want me to go too far. But yeah, that second relationship was pretty much a rebound. I needed to get out of the house with my parents. It was not where I wanted to be. And, when you have somebody that's ignoring you while you're in the same room, it's kind of like uncomfortable. So if Taylor will be able to come back in, hopefully. I'm going to try to read some of these comments. Kara says, thank you for being brave enough to share. It took me a while. Thank you.
I'm here. Can you see me?
I can see you. You're back.
I'm so sorry. So sorry, guys. Okay, so I don't know where I told you to keep talking in case this happens.
I did.
Follow direction. I love it. So tell me, just catch me up where you are. And yeah.
That's where after the first marriage was gone, I lived with mom and them for a couple of months. And with my stepdad not speaking to me, I started dating a guy who had money. It's something that I'd never had before. So he wined me, he dined me, and it was new. Money was nice. It was fun. We had a lot of good times. And next thing I know, we're getting married. went off to the Smoky Mountains and got married. Again, everybody was agitated with me and nobody was speaking to me. It was really special. So we were married 3 years and 10 months. But that's when I started working out. I started going to the gym and running all the time. And that's where I found a new community of people. I mean, he and I had nothing in common. They didn't even know I was married because we never went anywhere. It's not that I was messing with anybody else. It was just they didn't see me with him ever. And I went to the Gladiators. That's when I started trying out for that. And
that was so fun. I have to tell you, that was really fun at our retreat. You know, so the ladies that are at the retreat, hey Lynn, how are you? It was so much fun because we had to put in a bowl like something about us that no one would guess, right? And that was nobody guessed that about you. Right?
Actually, I think it was the very first question pulled, and I pulled it. It's funny.
That was funny. That was good.
But that was the weekend before I went to the Gladiators. He and I had an argument over something. He hated me working out because that was my thing. He hunted. He did lots of hunting, and that was his thing, which was fine. We had lots of horses, lots of cattle, lots of farm animals, and that's what we did together. But the Gladiators was something I did with my friends, and he told me that I looked like a man. He didn't like the way that I looked, and I was like an hourglass. It was hot and popping. It was the best shape I've ever been in my life. And he said, you look like a man. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean I look like a man? But wow. I was rippled. I had muscles everywhere because I had worked for that. And he didn't like it. And I was like, okay. So 3 years, 10 months, we was talking. And one day, I don't know, he had been to a week-long hunting trip. And I was like, is there anything here that we need to work on? Is there a future here at all? And he's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, okay. I literally picked up my purse and walked out the door. Of course, I'd been a nurse for a couple of years and had some money in the bank and I would be okay. So we go through the divorce process and we show up at the courtroom to sign our papers. And I look over and there's some of the people at the gym that I went to that were at the courtroom. And I was like, hey guys, what are y'all doing here? And nobody said anything. So I go and I sit in on the left side of the courthouse. And my now husband, Dale, who used to work out at the gym, came and sat behind me. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he handed me, what do you want to call it? Subpoena papers where he and all of the gym people were subpoenaed to court. And I'm like, for what? And he said, I have no idea, but I had to show up. So then this girl that I thought was my best friend, I mean, that was probably the last best friend that I've had in many, many years. We talked, we walked, we ran, we went shopping, we did everything together. And you just have conversation. She walked in with him. And I was like, what are you doing here? And she just smiled and went and sat down beside him. And I was like, okay. So I got really nauseous. I was like, what is fixing to happen to me?
And this is your best friend?
This was my best friend. And so we come up to they'd call you up to the desk to talk to each of you individually. And she says, do you know why and some of the people that I worked with at the hospital were also subpoenaed that I worked on night shift. So they had gotten off night shift, drove to Russellville, which is 45 minutes, to sit in my court. And I'm like, so the judge asked, she says, do you know why these people are here? And I said, I have no idea. I said, we have nothing. We have no real estate, no cars, no kids, I don't know. And she brought him up and he said, I want to embarrass her as much as I can. And I'm like, why? We just need to get divorced and go our separate way. I'm like, this is stupid. And the judge looked at him and said, well, I think you just embarrassed yourself and told me as much as I need to know about you. And she signed the papers and on we went. And I was like, oh my God. So Dell and I stayed friends. We never dated at that point.
So wait. I gotta go back to the girlfriend here. This is the best friend. Like, yeah. Okay. So he had every intentions of hurting you. I mean, so walking in with, was that a was that a ploy, or was that a real scenario?
Well, she clearly, every conversation we had was taking it back to him. Anything that we said, she was calling him and spilling her guts. And I was like, and I finally went to her house. It's like, why did you do that? Why didn't you just like, let's not be friends? And she said, because I thought some of the things you saying were wrong about him because he's such a nice guy. And I'm like, well, it had nothing to do with him being nice. It's like, we just didn't have anything in common. Like we were two separate people.
Was there any kind of, I mean,
What did they have anything going on? I don't know. I didn't pursue it. I didn't look into it. I was just like, this is craziness to me.
so was there anything happening outside of, I mean, the verbal things? Obviously there was a tinge of things him saying about you. Was there any other physically things happening?
No. We just lived two separate lives. I mean, there was no, I mean, he's a nice guy. His mother, he's a mama's boy. They had lots of money, and she would go buy him a new truck or 4 new tires on his truck. And she was trying to charge me rent to live at their house, and I'm like, I ain't paying rent. It's his house. He can pay it.
Okay, so all that's clear. So you don't. So thank goodness the judge saw through right him. So
Yeah.
you had met Dale. So how? So so we've got through the second marriage, right? Learned a lot.
We learned a lot, but I wasn't even done. I wasn't finished learning. We stayed friends. We talked. I mean, we've been friends for years and years. He was super nice human being, the most different person that I had ever been around. So he was too nice for me, right?
Dale,
he was too nice for me. And
isn't that the way women think? We don't deserve that. Yeah. That's too good to be true, or we don't deserve someone like that.
Yep.
And maybe not consciously, but subconsciously we push it away.
Yep. And I did. I pushed him away because I thought, oh, you are way too nice for me. I can't handle that. And so what did I do? I ran head on to a very handsome cowboy who drove a black dually. He had horses. He had the charisma, and he was narcissistic.
Mm.
And he knew how to play it. He played it well. Great sex. He was fun. He made me laugh. We would go out drinking and having a good time. It was just fun. He was a fun person to me. He was not somebody I knew not to get married again. I was not into that because I was single for like 10 years. But we moved in together after, we'd probably dated about 1.5 years. And he was like, I want you over here. We're going to build a house. We're going to do this. And it was all fun and games until we had a baby. And that's when everything flipped. Because I had to give the baby more attention to him, and narcissists do not like that.
Yeah.
So Zach was, how old was Zach? He was 9 weeks old. And he came home from work and he said, I'm moving out. I just don't want to do this dad thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? You just don't want to? It's like you can't cash in the chips. And he pinned me against the wall with my neck. And of course, I was holding Zach, and I wrapped my fingers in his jumper so that I wouldn't drop him. And I was losing grip on my son. And I just remember looking up at him, and I said, if this baby hits the floor, I'm going to do whatever I can to kill you. And he was like, oh, you're not worth it. And so he walked out the door. We had this farm. I stayed on the farm, stayed in the house, lived there probably, 9 months. And then he swooned his way back in and, of course, let him move back in. We bought another farm, built another house. This one was bigger than the last. We had horse boarding that we were doing. Money was rolling in with no problem. Little did I know that he was also dealing drugs on the outside. That was not something that I was aware of because he kept it at the barn.
Yeah.
And so we came in one evening and we had been out with friends, his friends, not mine. And clearly something was off with him. He was different. But we got to his mom's and was going to go in and get the baby. And I was like, I started to get out of the car and he said, don't get out of the car. And I'm like, I'm going in to get my son. Of course I'm getting out of the car. And he said, if you get out, I'm going to whoop your ass. And I'm like, guess you're going to have to whoop my ass because I'm going in to get my baby. And so I took off running to the house. His dad opened the door because he heard the screaming. And when I walked in the door, his mom and dad stood there. They didn't offer to help. They didn't try to stop him.
But whenever
And,
but tell everybody what you were screaming.
oh, I was lots of profanity, but I was just like, I'm going in to get my son. You're going to leave me alone. And it was just, he was telling me, if you go in, I'm going to whip you. And I'm like, you're going to have to whip my ass because I'm going in, period. So I get in and I start running down the hallway, and I don't know if he grabbed me or if I turned or whatever, and I tripped and fell. And he came down on top of me. And all I remember is looking up and his fist coming and hit me in the face. Of course, this whole side was just black and blue, and it was blood. They had white carpet, so blood splattered everywhere. And I thought, God, he done killed me. I could hear my son screaming in the background. So your mother instincts kick in.
Yeah.
And I get up off the floor and I'm like, dude, you completely fucked up, and I'm going to make sure you pay for this. Everybody just kind of backed up because, like, my shirt was covered. I grabbed my son and took off running to the car. And I slept with my baby and a pistol that night. And he slept out in the barn or somewhere. I don't know. But I was like, you're looking in the mirror. But the night before we went out to eat, I had dropped down on my knees in the middle of my living room. And I'm like, God, if I'm supposed to be here, mellow things out. Let me see that I'm supposed to be here. And if I'm not supposed to be in this relationship, show me in black and white that I'm not supposed to be here. So I go and I look in the mirror after I get home, and there's my white face with a black bruise all over it. And it was just apparent to me that I wasn't supposed to, I had to leave. So we had a brand new house. We had, furniture and stuff. Things were much nicer there. The money was flowing. So I called my mom and I'm like, I need to move. I got to get out. So the next morning, a U-Haul pulled up with 10 people. I don't even know who they are to this day, that helped me move. That happened at 11 o'clock at night. By 11 a.m. the next morning, we were pulling out. And
Wow.
he came down the driveway and he's like, please don't leave. And I'm like, what do you mean? So it took probably a good, I don't know, a year and a half of court and child court and all that stuff to get through that. But, he's been through 4 other women since me. So that was an eye opener to me. It's like my first husband was married 4 times. All the women left. He's had, I don't know, 5, 6 that he's lived with.
Yeah.
And so when I step back, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not such a bad person after all. Maybe I just put myself in some really crappy situations. And I learned a lot. So when I met Dale, I knew how to appreciate a good person. It took me a long time. He's such a good man. It took me a long time to trust him and to know that he wasn't leaving, or that what we had was real. And I was like, are you worthy of that? Are you good enough? Should he even be here? But we've been married 20 years this year. So
Congratulations.
thank you. But he's had all of my past drama. He got to deal with all of that, and me trying to get past that. So it took a while.
Well, thank God that he answers prayers and that he heard you, that, he closed one door and opened another one. I can certainly vouch for that one and what my experience. So okay. So now you met the man of your dreams, and you've got this family, and you're now in nursing. So take us to take us to the point to where you are now, like with this space of your life and where this life that you're building, this amazing life.
Yeah, to turn the shadows off of the past, I worked at the hospital, at the psychiatric hospital for 20 years. Well, actually 25 and a half. But at that 20-year mark, you work at some facilities and you top out. You hit the glass ceiling. There's no more raises. There's nowhere else for you to move to. There's no ladder other than lateral moves. And those didn't open up a lot. So I was kind of like, okay, I could work there another 20 years, 30, whatever I wanted to, but I'm going to make this amount of money because we didn't get a lot of state raises. So a friend of mine on night shift, she had a network marketing company that she was working with. And she says, I didn't know anything about it. She didn't know how to make it work. She just knew if you took this pill, it helps you stay awake at night. And I was like, awesome. Give me some ephedra. Let me have some good energy at night. And she didn't tell me that you needed to sign people up. I was selling it out of the trunk of my car. And so I was making cash, but I wasn't getting sign-ups because I didn't know you're supposed to sign people up.
Yeah, isn't that that's the way. Yeah.
So, then I quickly learned that, okay, this is not going to grow money because I can only reach so many people. And I started going to some home meetings trying to learn. The internet didn't really hit until 2008, 2009 is when it started populating. 2010 is when I found the company that I'm presently with. I was working night shift. I worked 6 at night till 7 in the morning, 3 days a week. So I had 2 young boys, not a lot of extra time, not a lot of extra energy. And it was like, I've got to figure this out to where I didn't have the energy to do the home meeting thing.
Yeah.
And so that's when I learned Facebook was just coming on scene. And I started just trying to figure out how to talk to people on Facebook. And I was just doing, little, when I see memories pop up and you see your old posts come up, you're like, well, that was dumb. It's like, there was no value in that whatsoever. But I just and then I don't know, about 6 months into that, I was like, I need a blog, but I didn't know how to do a blog. I just kind of fell forward, and you just stumble into your knowledge and you just kept trying. So I started blogging my nursing stories again.
Stories
Again.
Stories are so magical with people, and it's just such a lost art.
Yep. And, I think my stories from my shift before was so crazy that people didn't think they were real. But I worked in a state psychiatric hospital where we had people come in off the street, out of prison, out of jail. We would, keep people for a week before they went to court. We've had, murderers. We've worked with all of them. So I was just telling stories, not giving people's names, details, and all that. But all of a sudden, those other nurses started resonating with my stories, and they wanted to know how I had energy to raise my kids. They wanted to know, when did you sleep? How are you working your business? And I'm like, am I working a business? I guess I'm working a business. And so I just learned to blog and tell my story, and it's evolved over time to where it is today. And I love blogging, and that's.
So how did you get, because where you're at now, you obviously left your full-time position.
I did. After I hit, I went from the floor of nursing, left my units and went up to the education department and ran that department for almost 5 years. And, that was the point where I just kept working. I'd go home in the afternoon and I would do power hours. I would work for an hour, either at the ball field, at the soccer field, at wherever I was, through my phone, until my check started being more the first 7 days of the month in my network marketing company than I made the entire month from my nursing check.
Wow, that's powerful. That's such a powerful thing right there, Angela, because most people, the consistency of working that hour and not being focused on, okay, in that hour that you've focused on, what was your goal in that hour time frame? What what was your mindset and what was your goal to achieve?
I would do follow-up, which I was not pretty. It was not glamorous, but anybody that talked to me about my product, my oils, I talked straight product. I didn't talk business, but I always followed up with people, send out samples. I would get a blog post done. I would get a newsletter done. In the afternoon, I had limited time between supper and kids. So I was staying very, very focused in that time zone. But that was my focus. Like Mondays or Sundays, I would get a blog post up. Monday, I'd get a newsletter up. Wednesday was follow up. Thursday, it was reaching out to new people. And I had a schedule that I stayed. It didn't matter what happened. Those things happened on those days
Yes.
because I knew that my job was doing all it was going to do. And I was very grateful that I had a job, I had insurance, I had vacation time, but it wasn't going to be any more than that. So.
And so how was Dale in the process of this? Like, was he supportive of you?
Oh,
like,
man.
No.
This may, I would say, hey, there's an event. Actually, when I met Ray Higdon, when I got to meet you, it was like, hey, I just saw this guy named Ray on this network marketing GoPro thing, and he's going to have an event in Florida, and I need to go. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, do you mind if I go? And he goes, no. He never asked how much anything cost. He didn't ask, any of that. It was just like, okay. So I called him from Ray's event. I'm like, he's got this coaching program. It's really expensive. And I said, what do you think? And he asked me the question. He said, if you don't do the coaching, where are you going to be this time next year? And I was like, oh man, good question. And it's like, I don't know what he's going to teach me, but I'm willing to put in place whatever this man teaches. And I was literally sweating bullets when I filled out that form to join that. That was the most expensive I'd ever paid for anything from me. And so he's just right there with me. If I travel, he can get off work. He goes with me, and he's my arm candy when I go.
Love that. And so now, like currently, so you quit your job, like and so now, like you're the top echelon of your company. Like,
yeah. When I called and found out that I called to check to see how much more I had to work before I could do full benefit retirement. And the day that I called, the lady says, "Oh, you can retire today. You've got all your stuff is in line." And I'm like, send me my papers. So I've got those filled out and handed them in. And they thought after I retired December of 2014 that I would be back in 90 days because that's the way everybody retired. They kept my job open. They didn't fill it. And so close to the 90 days, my director of nursing called and she says, when are you coming back? And I'm like, coming back to what? And she says, when are you coming back to work? And I'm like, girl, I'm not coming even to the parking lot. I am not coming back.
I love that. I'm not even in the parking lot. I love that.
So yeah, I've been retired 5 years and I'm pretty much doing the same things that I did that got me to this point. I'm still blogging. I'm still doing a newsletter. I've added a podcast and, I've got a couple of courses. Of course, LinkedIn is my new favorite thing to play on. And I just keep it really simple because I think I was trying to get too technical for a while, and that makes me even less duplicatable. Yeah. So I started reeling it back and just doing what I did to get me to this point and teaching people how I did that.
That's awesome. And so, like, I mean, this has been really great because it's taken you so long to get here to share this story. But yeah. I know that there's a lot of women that are going to be watching and seeing you and seeing what an inspiration that is becoming from, all the negative experience and being able to take that positive, all that learning and that growth and be able to apply it and channel it into something beautiful for your family. Yeah. So share with what kind of, we talk about sharing her excellence. Like, what is it that you would want to share with the ladies or give to the ladies that you think like women in our space. What do you want to give to the ladies?
There's a lot of women that are in the space that I was in. You have somebody talking in your ear that's telling you you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough. Consistently work an hour a day. If that's all you've got, do an hour a day for you, and make new connections. Find women like the She Network. I was so nervous to go to the retreat because of the women connection. I was like, okay, I've done this woman thing before and it was ugly. And I'm like, oh my God. And you get there and you just don't know what you need until you get around that group of women. That was probably the most empowering thing I've ever experienced. But get into a group of people that can encourage you, because if he's telling you you're not worthy, I'm telling you that you are.
Yes.
I've been there. I've been there, and I know what that feels like. And it takes a long time to get that programming out of your head.
Yes.
A long time to get that out of your head. And you just have to have enough goodness going in that you can do this. It's just find your niche, find your community that you want to teach and talk to.
I love that. And you were nervous. And I mean, I remember you you wanted to come, and I can see, sometimes our past, we can channel into our future or present. Yep. And not being able to let the walls down and the barriers down to let people in and be vulnerable and transparent. That's so hard, especially if you've been hurt before by someone you love and care about. And, but I think it's really in the vulnerabilities that we really do create true relationships with people and connections. And that's why I wanted to build this network of women. And so I'm so glad that you came. I'm glad you came to the retreat, and there's going to be more of them, once we get through the big queue.
Right.
So what do you do? I mean, tell the ladies, whenever, to keep your mindset right, because now that you've gone through all of this stuff, and you're working for yourself, what happens whenever you go through negative, you feel yourself, with negative mindset? Do you use any scripture? Do you have a quote? Do you have your favorite thing that your staple?
One of my favorite things is, and I have bracelets, I have necklaces, I have things on my desk that says she believed she could, so she did. And I believed enough in me that I'm a survivor, and I knew that if I made it through that and could still function, I knew that I could build this business. I didn't know all the ins and outs of it, didn't know how to make it look pretty, and I just decided to fall forward imperfectly and to stumble into the next step. But I always say yes. And Taylor Thompson is the prime example of me saying yes, because I remember saying yes to the retreat, and when I hung up, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And then when you asked me to speak on this network, I was like, yes. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do?
Hey, that's Mel Robbins. That's the 5-second rule, right?
Yep. Say yes and figure it out.
It's true. And I love that. Such great wisdom right here. So if you're tuning, listening to this, I love what you said, falling forward imperfectly. Yeah. Falling forward imperfectly is such great wisdom, because, here's the thing. You could have definitely, with what you'd been through with different men and marriages, you could have let that hold you captive. Mm-hmm. And even with your family, because not having a supportive family, and then, all that negativity that goes with that. I love that you call yourself a survivor, which is survival mentality. I think that's what we all need to have, no matter what. And
we do.
And no matter what our set of circumstances have been. And so falling, so that's great wisdom, falling forward imperfectly. She believed she could, so she did. That's right there. Ladies, all the more reason to have a network and a community, a tribe of women that you can connect with. If you're in that space and you don't have that environment is stronger than will. To have that community of women to wrap your arms around and say, I need help, I need support. I believe that I want to do this. I just need somebody to say you can, and
Yep.
so that's what this is all about for me. And so, like, share with, like, do you have like any book recommendations? I know you said I've got several of them. You're like me; I read 4 or 5 at a time. So
I do. Actually, Brene Brown is one that I have been rereading about shame, and that was from you asking me that. I pulled that book back out and started going through it. I like to read a lot of things that are not so much religious, but as spiritual for inner healing as much as outer healing, cleansing my energy so that I radiate positivity to other people.
Yeah.
But I always have 3, 4, 5 books going at a time. So, but Brene, I always fall back to her books. She is just such a straightforward.
Kim's here. She says, "Oh, 2 of my favorite gals. Thank you. Thank you. You're one of our favorite gals too." So
Absolutely.
So, so as we're leaving here, like, what are some of just the, do you have any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with ladies? So, you guys, ladies, as we launch the membership, she's going to be coming inside and sharing her excellence. And I don't know what it is yet. I'm thinking it might be on LinkedIn, but I don't know. Maybe, I mean, she's kind of a guru in this arena. So I'm hoping that's what it may be. So you guys have to stay tuned. Ladies have to stay tuned. But what's the last things that you'd like to share with us?
I'm very grateful for you. Aww. I'm very grateful for, don't cry. You're almost done. Don't cry. I'm very grateful for this community. Stop. I'm glad I found a group of women that are fabulous, like the ones that are here.
Aww.
Because I needed that. And I almost made the whole thing. But I never cared to have the women connection because they scared me. And so I'm so grateful for you and what you have here and what you're building. And I'm so glad I'm a part of it.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it. And I'm so thankful because to let that go and to share that story. And I know that it's going to be such a blessing for somebody else watching behind you, for sure.
I hope so.
So, all right, ladies. Well, that is it for us today. We're so happy that you guys tune in. And here's the thing. I just want everybody, as we leave out today, there's so many things happening, but I just want you to think about the things that you have to be grateful for and thankful for today. I just have, if there's somebody, here's what I'm going to give I'll give an action step today to follow up. Like, reach out to somebody that maybe maybe homebound, maybe like an older person. Check on them, see if they need anything. Be willing to serve somebody else outside of your space today.
Yeah.
Even if it's an encouraging word, and even if it's just a text message or a phone call, just checking in on you, wanted to know that I was thinking about you, and that right there can go a million miles in this space where we are right now. And so I just hope I just want to wish lots of love to everyone, and thank you for being here, and thank you so much, Angela, for taking the time to be here. I love you.
Absolutely.
And all right, ladies, have a blessed, amazing day.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, you left me. Oh no, she left.